Yo, what's going on everybody? Today I want to give my race recap of the 2022 LA Marathon. I'm going to do this chronologically and hopefully that will help this from being too long of a race recap video. Let's jump right into it. I'm going to start the night before the marathon with the flat lay where it laid everything out. The game plan as far as gels goes was to use a 6 gel strategy using one every 4 miles. The first 2 would be Martin gels, 1 regular and 1 caffeinated. And then the middle 2 gels for this race were gonna be kind of my salty gels. So I had 1 Humid Chia Plus that had a little bit of caffeine and then 1 Unived, which had a little bit of more caffeine, but both of those have a lot of salt. And the idea was that that would get that salt into my system for the last couple miles of push. And then the last 2 gels that I took were another 2 Martins, 1 regular and 1 caffeinated. I felt like that worked out really well for me, although the first one I kind of forgot to take because of the hills in this race, and we'll talk about that once we get to it in the race recap. As far as the pants go, I went with the Rabbit half tights. Those have 2 really good side pockets. You could stuff 3 gels in each of the side pockets, but it also has a nice back pocket. And for race day, when I don't have to worry about a phone or keys or anything like that, I put 2 of the gels in the back. So it's just 2, 2, and then 2 in the back. So it makes it really easy for me to remember like which gel am I going to be reaching for at which time. So I really thought that those tights worked out perfectly. The temperature for the race was going to be kind of like in the low 50s for the start, getting into the mid 60s by the finish. So that's like really good hack tights weather for me. For the top, I used the Asics Breathe singlet, which I know it still is not for sale on the Asics website. I'm not sure that that version of the singlet that I have, which is incredibly good, by the way, and I really wish more of you guys could experience it. That's not going to be on sale, but I'm hearing that version 2, they're just going to jump right to version 2 of this singlet. Next season's version 2 of this singlet should be coming on shortly. I'll let you guys know as soon as I hear about when that becomes available. That singlet ended up being perfect for me. It just feels like I'm not wearing anything at all. It's just such a fantastic singlet, featherweight, dries really quickly, air just shoots right through it to help you cool in the later miles of a race. For the hat, I went with the Tracksmith Cieli hat. It's kind of a little bit warmer of a hat than I would have liked. I brought a couple of other hats with me on the trip. I ended up not liking kind of like any of the hats that I brought. And so kind of the Cieli one, which is a little bit bigger than kind of like a standard Cieli hat, just was kind of like my least bad option, but it ended up not being altogether all that bad. It ended up working just fine. As far as the watch, I went with the Garmin 945 LTE. I'll have a lot to say about it in this race. I still haven't done a full review of it. Need to get some mapping testing done, and then I'll do the full review, but we'll talk about that today. And then for the shoes, I had the Metaspeed Sky. Asics provided me with a brand new colorway, fresh pair, the Shocking Orange, which is like orange and bright yellow of the Metaspeed Sky version 1. I was very happy to have a fresh pair, although I had been like saving my current pair of Metaspeed Skies. I have the Tokyo colorway, and I've been saving that one because I wanted to make sure I had it kind of as fresh as possible for this race. All right, so then I went to bed, got about 6 hours of sleep, but I did have to get up really early. We were hopping on a bus that Asics provided at 4 a.m. to go to Dodger Stadium. Asics had set us up in like a special like suite inside the stadium, which was super awesome. It had lots of coffee and lots of food and bathrooms indoors as well. And the indoor part was really nice because it was pretty chilly that morning, and the winds were really picking up. I could see people as they were coming in through the stadium that they were wearing like their ponchos and stuff because it had kind of like lightly rained overnight. And their ponchos were just like flapping around like crazy in the wind because the winds were just really picking up. And I didn't think that that was supposed to happen based on some of the weather forecast. So I was really happy to have that kind of indoor area to just kind of relax for a little while. And then I did my warm up. I did my normal kind of like mobility routine to kind of get the hips opened up, kind of get the knees moving a little bit before I hung out for a little bit longer and then went out for a quick warm up. I ended up warming up where the other Asics pros were warming up. I was there with like Caroline Rotich and Zane Robertson as they were all warming up and like doing their drills and some strides and stuff. So I felt like I was intruding and definitely like I was in a place I didn't need to be in. But I got my warm up in. I jogged for 10 minutes, basically just did a mile. And then I did a couple of drills before I did just 2 strides, and then I was pretty much ready to go. And then at a certain point, the A6 group brought us all down, and they just plopped us right in front, like right behind the elite corral. So like I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to find the 3-hour pace group, but where they kind of just like they kind of opened up a gate and let us all go in, that was right in that front corral. So I was right there by the 3-hour pace group. I wanted them to be a little bit ahead of me, but that front corral wasn't all like that. I mean, it was full, but it wasn't like it wasn't like CIM kind of full as far as corrals go. So like I could move around a little bit and maneuver and kind of position myself where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a little bit on the left side and as kind of as far back in that corral as possible. But then once the race started, everything kind of like went from being like pretty chill and relaxed to like super hectic like right away. And I was standing by Floris at the start, and all the other A6 people that were, a lot of them were running the race, either the marathon or they were doing the half marathon. And I wanted to keep like the 3-hour pace flag in sight and a little bit ahead of me for kind of just like the entire race, thinking that I'm going to try to run even effort, not even pace. So I might be kind of yo-yoing them a little bit. But if I let them get ahead out far enough in the beginning before I cross the start line, then my yo-yoing would always still kind of have them in sight, and I would never be kind of like in no man's land ahead of that 3-hour pace group. But like as soon as the race started, like I almost got hit in the face with someone's phone because they were like holding their phone out. Like, I mean, it's weird that I'm the guy that runs with the selfie stick is complaining about other people like being not that careful how they're filming the race, but this guy had his like arm like fully extended out with his phone and like not looking at where the phone was filming. He was, I think, just hoping to get the shot, and it almost like smacked me in the face, so I had to duck away around from that, and instantly I lost everyone. I was looking around, I didn't know where anyone was, and we're going up a very steep uphill very suddenly. And then that very quickly, just as quickly, turned into a giant downhill. So one of the stories that I've heard from the race is that the lead men's group went out at a world record pace for the first 5K. People were just absolutely shocked by how fast the first 5K was. But the first, like from mile like 0.4 till about 3.5, so the next like 3 miles, is pretty much straight downhill. There's a little blip of an uphill, and there's a part where it's like a little bit flat, but even that's downhill. But it's pretty much straight downhill. And looking at some of my numbers, it goes from 564 feet of elevation by the stadium down to 265 feet. So you're losing 300 miles over the course of about 3 miles, which is a very steep drop in a very short amount of time. So everyone's first 5K should be a little bit fast when you have that much downhill that you're dealing with. It was steep enough that like you had to either run a little bit faster than you would have wanted to, or you would have to spend a lot of energy braking on the way down. And I feel like neither is optimal. So it's kind of like you choose between 2 really bad, from at least a marathon pacing perspective, you have to choose between 2 really bad options. I went with the fast option. So I went a little bit quick. My first 5K was running 6 minute and 33 second miles. We were at like 20 minutes and like 20 something seconds. So not an ideal kind of pacing. Now, as I start going through these numbers, I'm going to bounce back and forth between a couple of different sources. The main thing that I'm going to go with whenever I can is I'm going to go by the chip time. And the chip time at the LA Marathon is every 5K. So when you're looking at the LA Marathon results, there's 2 ways to look at it. If you go through the LA Marathon website, it sends you to some like results service called like Exact, I think XACTE, exact2.com, like, and other stuff. And it gives you all the 5K splits, and it averages out what your pace is as you go from 5, 10, 15, 20K, and so on. But if you like Google search LA Marathon results, you find another Exact website, XACTE, but it's an older version, but I'm actually going to refer to that whenever I can, because that older version of the website has 2 columns. What the overall average paces are at each 5K marker and what each 5K intervals average pace is as well. And I think that's going to be really helpful to look at. And while we're talking about data, here's some other weird things that happen. So I used the Garmin 945 LTE, and I also used a Stride foot pod. Now, I think that either the Stride foot pod and the Garmin 945 LTE are not getting along well. I've been having some issues, and or my Stride foot pod is dying. I've had mine for several years. I've been beating it up like crazy. And so it just may be dying. That may be the other thing that's happening. My overall like Stride distance reading for the day was 25.8 something miles. And then if I look at Strava, and I'm able to extract just the GPS tracing that the watch provided, that GPS tracing measures out to 26.62 miles total. So we're gonna bounce around a little bit between all sorts of different sources and trying to figure out exactly, what was going on during the race. So just kind of bear with me. And that's the reason why, just because some of the pieces aren't talking well to each other. So I apologize for that. So talked about the first 5K, came through relatively quickly, and then we're into the next 5K. The big thing that's notable about that kind of second 5K, so from mile 3 to about mile 6, is that at mile 4, you hit 2 big hills right in a row. Almost all that elevation that we dropped, we pick right back up again almost right away. We dropped 300 feet, but then you end up doing 200 feet of total gain. Now, we don't get quite as high as when we were at the stadium because there's a little bit of a dip first before you hit that second big hill. But the first hill starts at about 265 feet at the 3.6-ish mile mark and peaks at 4.7. So in a mile, we're gaining about 130 feet. Then we dip down and then we start at 333 feet at the 5 mile mark, and we get up to 445 feet at 0.7 miles later. So we're gaining quite a bit of elevation in kind of like a 2 mile period. So we're gaining more than 100 feet per mile in that stretch. So that's kind of like the big story in that second 5K. I really slowed down quite a bit, or at least I thought I did, trying to make sure that I wasn't getting over my goal marathon power number of 270 watts. Now, there is a big downhill that was in there too. So we dropped from that 395 feet down to 340 feet in a very short amount of time, in about a quarter mile. That second 5K, I came through at a time of about 21 minutes, or about 6 minutes and 44 seconds per mile. So still a lot faster than I should have been going. So definitely just trying to figure out this course and just how intense these hills, both the uphills and the downhills, were going to be. From that point on, at the 6 mile mark, all the way through like a little bit past the half mile point, there was just a lot of rollers. There were some pretty significant hills, both up and down, but for the most part, I think there's nothing really notable except for the fact that it was almost never flat. Now, the nice thing about this course is that there was mostly asphalt and not too much concrete. In the big scheme of things, some people might say it doesn't make that big a difference, but for me, I do think that it feels just a little bit softer underfoot, and it's just that much easier to run on, in my opinion. So that was pretty nice, and the roads were nice and wide, and none of the turns were especially sharp. There was a handful of sharp turns here and there, but nothing where I was really worried about the tangents. For the most part, I could see really far ahead and see the kind of how the roads were kind of weaving around back and forth, and I tried to find a way to try to run down the middle of it the best I could. Now, the thing about the LA course is that there were never any clocks, so I can never kind of like see my clock time at any point during the race, and I really wish I could have had that because like with the way that I was having some difficulties with the data, that would have been helpful to kind of just like, all right, stop paying attention to the watch and maybe just look for the clock a little bit more. Because by the time I got to the halfway point, in my mind, when I looked at it, I thought that we had come through at 1:29:40, and that's what I kind of said to the camera. All right, guys, I'm through the half at 1:29:40. But when I look at the data, at the 20 kilometer mark, which is 1.1 kilometers short of a half marathon, we came through at 1:22:53. Now, let's say we add about 4.5 to 5 minutes to that. That puts us at like a 1:28. In Garmin, what we can do is we can see we had come through the 13-mile mark in 1:26:51. So hitting that 13.1 would have been somewhere at 1:27. So we were coming through really, really hot, but I thought that we were just barely hitting that 3-hour pace. Plus, I was also with the 3-hour pace group at that point. Like I could see the people with the 3-hour flag. It seemed like everything was okay, and it seemed like things were going smoothly. Then at about mile 14, we hit this giant downhill. You were hitting about 200 feet of descent in the course of 1 mile. So it was a really big descent. Again, one of those descents where you're like, I either got to run a little bit harder than I think I should be for a marathon, or you're going to spend a lot of energy braking. I think I did a little bit of both as I was going down this gigantic downhill. I was not really even worried about hitting that 270 power number mark. I'm pretty sure I wasn't even hitting it anywhere close to it. But I was like, if I try to run any faster, this is going to just really burn out some of my muscles. So I like didn't really want to do that. And I just kind of like tried to stay as light on my feet as possible through that big downhill. Then after that, we hit some more of those rollers and hitting into those wide streets. For the 20 to 25K, for that 5K increment, came through at an average of 6:49. And the next 5K after that, going from 25K to 30K, started slowing down a little bit towards the back end of that. And the average pace for that 5K was 7:11 per mile. So already, even before I hit kind of like the 20-mile mark, I'm already starting to feel myself slowing down. By the time you get to like the 18-mile mark, that's where I feel like a lot of the groups were, because then I think that if they see you at mile 18, you have to do a little out and back, and they see you again right before you hit the finish line. And it got a lot more interesting. I think that's about where I saw the piñata, a pineapple piñata there. I like extended my GoPro stick and I hit it because I really wanted to hit the piñata for good luck. So I did that. That was really fun. I saw people in a shark costume and then a unicorn costume, which was also a lot of fun and like kind of like one of the highlights of things and spectacles that I saw on the course, which I really enjoyed. Once you hit mile 20, you like make a turn and you go up again for another mile-long climb of 100 feet, just one steady incline. And that's where I just felt like the race broke me. And I was just like, I can't do this. I don't care what my time is anymore. I guess I'll just kind of like cruise or hobble my way in, because like this hill just sucks. I know I'll get this on the way back as a downhill, but I just felt so terrible at that point. And right there, that was a little gap where there weren't that many people. And so I was just like really struggling at that point, because you like go under a freeway, so it's noisy and quiet and lonely all at the same time. And then you turn and there's even more uphill that you have to go after that. But for the most part, all I remember of that stretch after that mile-long uphill was how long it was. And I could start seeing some of the elites coming back on the other way. And it just felt like absolutely miserable to see them. And I could see that they were passing like a 25-mile marker. And I hadn't like even felt like I'd seen like the 21 or the 22-mile marker. And I was just like, how much further am I going to have to run before I even get to turn around? And I felt like I was doing a lot of rolling in that area too. So it was just like, there's not going to be a break. This stinks right now. I feel terrible. Mile 19 was a 7:34. Mile 20 was a 7:20. Mile 21 was a 7:34. So I'd seen all these times. I was like, there's no way. If I had come through at the halfway point at 7:29:40, and I've already got 3 miles that are that slow, I'm not going to be able to make it back up, because most of this course is going to be uphill from here on to the finish. So I was like, there's just no way. So I'd already kind of like given up. Finally, mercifully, at the 22.6 mile mark, or at least 22.6 according to my GPS tracing, you see a big giant like noon like inflatable, and then you get to turn around, and we started to head back. But then right around like the mile 23 mark, that's when Floris and his coach Jimmy, they were like, come on Mike, let's go, you can still get that sub 3. And I was like, no, I can't. It's totally gone. There's just no way that I can do this.
You banked more than 3 minutes.
I did? Oh,
Nice work, brother. You can run 7:30s right now.
I was so confused at that point because I was tired and I'm trying to do marathon math, and I'm also trying to explain to them that there's no mathematical way that I can get anywhere close to a sub 3-hour marathon. But they were just yelling at me in a good encouraging kind of way, you know.
Give it everything you got. Everything.
They you know, tried to block the wind that they best they could, and they were like, we're not going to stop. And so I tried to run with them, and at some point, like, we kind of rode a little bit of a light downhill, and then when it flattened out and started going uphill again, I just kind of like started slowing down, and I was like, you guys go ahead, have a good day. I'm already gone, so don't worry about dragging me in. And they were like, no, we're not going anywhere, we're all going to do this together. And so I was like, fine, whatever. I was in a terrible mood. I was like a toddler, like stamping his feet. Just like every time they said anything, I just disagreed, you know? So they were like, all right, we got to the 24-mile mark, and Floris was like, all right, we're at like 2:44. You got to run like 7-minute miles and we can get it, you know? And I was like, I can't run 7-minute miles. Are you kidding me? This is terrible. I was like, no. It didn't pick up on his feed, but that's why he's saying yes in that one clip.
Exactly 2:44, Mike. We have to run 2
7-minute miles. 2 sevens and you're in.
2 7-minute miles. We got this. Yes.
But they were just like trying to say whatever they could say to me to get me to go. At one point, Jimmy was just like, Jimmy is Floris's coach, so Coach Jimmy is just like yelling at me. He's like, you can and you will. You can and you will. He just kept saying that over and over again for like an entire uphill. And I was just kind of like trying to pace myself according to his chant.
You can, you will. You can, you will.
So then at the next uphill, I'm deciding I'm going to do this myself. I'm not going to let my own mind tell me that I can't do it anymore, because I've been running on what felt like legs that were about to kind of fail at any moment for a couple of miles now, and it hadn't happened yet. Although at that point I did kind of feel like a little bit of a twinge in my hamstring. So I was like a little bit nervous about it, but I was like, nope, I can and I will. And I felt like I was like yelling it forcefully and strong. As I was coming up this hill, I thought maybe it looked a little bit silly, but it is what I needed to do. So I was chanting like, I can, I will, I can, I will. And I felt like I was really yelling it, but I had recorded myself doing a little bit of it. And on the video, I'm just like barely like whispering it out as like a little pant, like I can, I will. I can, I will, I can, I will, I can, I will. But it served its purpose, and it got me up that kind of next little bit of uphill as well. And, you know, Jimmy had been telling me this whole time about, like, you know, you can't let your mind trick you into thinking that you can't do it or that you don't want it. Like, this is the fight that you signed up for. This is the battle that you need to win if you want to break sub 3. And I was like, this is all like stuff that I know. I knew this stuff. I was expecting this stuff. I've told you guys to expect this kind of stuff. But at the same time, like when it hit me in the face, like I needed someone else to tell it to me. So having Jimmy there and Floris there to encourage me the whole time, no matter how much I complained, was exactly what I needed. So like I owe a lot to those guys for carrying me through some of those last miles. Now to finish this race, and I really disliked the finish of the LA Marathon, but I think now having experienced it, I know a little bit more what to expect. But at what is the 26.2 mile mark, at least from my GPS tracing from the day, there's one last hill, and it looks like it's about a quarter mile long, about 400 meters, and it's an elevation gain of about 40 feet. So we're hitting that, and I'm telling Jimmy, like, tell me where the finish is. I can't see the finish. Where's the turn? Where do you turn in for the finish? Like, if I could see that, then I'll know when to push. Because they had been telling me, Floris and Jimmy had been telling me, like, all right, 4 more minutes of pushing, like 2 more minutes of pushing. And I was like, I don't believe you guys. You guys are making it up. It's longer than that away. Like, so I was like a donkey, like they was like refusing to be pulled. I was just like, I'm not going to give an effort until I know, like, I'm closer to the finish. But then, like, before I knew it, like, I could then all of a sudden, it's like, again, I told you, like, my vision was just, like, extremely narrowed. But then all of a sudden, like, it all opened up, and I saw, like, the wall to make you turn. And I was like, oh, here, I'm turning. So then I start picking up the pace, thinking it's like the Chicago Marathon, where I've got, like, another, like, 200 to 400 meters to kind of put in one last kick as I spot the finish line. But at the LA Marathon, it's basically like as soon as you turn the corner, you're like, boom, you're right there and the race is over. So like, I wish that there were a better way of like indicating along the course. Like at the Chicago Marathon, it tells you like 800 meters to go, 400 meters to go, and then you're up like Mount Roosevelt. Here, like, I felt like there was nothing. Maybe I know now to look for. There's like a big Volvo. They're one of the sponsors. There's like a big Volvo like sign. I think there was a car there as well, like on a big pedestal. I'll know to look for that next time, but like I wish I could have known that ahead of time to know that like once I could see the Volvo, that's really the finish, and that's when I can kind of start picking up and putting in that final effort. So I did have like a little bit left in the tank, or a little bit more that I could have given, you know, at the end of the race, but like pretty much as soon as I crossed the line, I was exhausted. Like the moment I stopped moving my legs, I started getting really lightheaded, and I thought I was going to either vomit or have to like lay down on the ground. And I hadn't felt that like kind of bad after a marathon since like, I think it was 2018. I had a really bad Chicago Marathon, but it didn't happen. Jimmy and Floris kept me walking for a little bit, and then I got some water in me, and then I saw some of the ASICS people, and then they kind of helped me out as well. And then we kind of like, I had a second to like look at the watch and realize that I was so much closer than I thought I was. I had no idea that I was actually that close at any point. The whole time that Jimmy's yelling at me and that Floris is yelling at me, like I thought that I was looking at like a 3:02, a 3:03 finish. I thought I was working that hard for like 3 minutes off goal. I didn't realize that I was still actually that close to the goal. I mean, it's not their fault. Floris told me all these things the entire time, but in my mind, I never believed that I was that close. I always felt like he's lying to me. He just wants me to finish strong. And he's just trying to like, you know, help me have a good result, even if it's not my goal. I didn't actually like think, or I didn't believe that I was really like quite that close. Now, had I really believed it, I don't think that I would have still had enough to make up 49 seconds, even in the last like 3 miles. Maybe I would have. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Maybe if I had tried to pick up those 49 seconds, that would have pushed me over the edge, and I would have ended up like collapsing or pulling something or just really having everything fall apart. Who knows? But at the end of the day, it was agonizingly close, but I feel so good about it. Technically I have a PR of like 3:01:53 from Tunnel Marathon, but that's a big giant 2,000 footed downhill marathon that's just right out of Seattle. Super fun race to run. And it is a BQ race, but you know, it's a lot of downhill. And so I kind of have been considering my PR to be CIM, which I ran in December of last year, just a few months ago. And that was a 3:02:28. And so to come out here to LA on a challenging course and run a 3 hours even with 49 seconds, I feel extremely proud of, and definitely something that I owe a lot to Floris and Jimmy, for helping to get me through those last 3 miles, which were just agonizingly tough. Looking at the Strava data one last time, it does look like the total elevation for this, just the total elevation gain, was 1,005 feet is what I have according to the altimeter in the Garmin 945 LTE. Just to put that in comparison, CIM, which everyone talks about being a net downhill course, has quite a bit of rollers. That course has 640 total feet of elevation gain. So quite a bit of difference in terms of the amount of elevation. And to be able to even beat that CIM time is something that I'm extremely, immensely proud of. Very happy overall with the day. And in the end, had a really great time at this race. With that time of 3 hours and 49 seconds, I was able to place 4th in my age group for men 40 to 44. That 4th place in the age group is out of 789 runners in the age group and a total of 7,000 male finishers of this marathon. So overall numbers that I can certainly be proud of, and thank you to everyone who provided help along the way. Every little bit mattered to me on this particular day, and I'm extremely excited about the result, even if I didn't hit that sub-3 number. If you have any other questions about the LA Marathon, let me know about it in the comments down below, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday over on my Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'll post a link to that in the description. I'd love to see you over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs and your races, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?